Hey folks, Tim Newman with Soft Light Studios, and it's time for another installment of Composition, Seeing and Being Seen. Now, as you know, this category of videos from us typically involves thoughts on composition and elements of design and seeing the scenes around us and capturing them effectively. Every once in a while, though, I get a subject that's important to me, and I feel like this is the platform for sharing my thoughts. Now, you may or may not be aware of it, but Sony recently announced the impending release of their Sony a7R4 mirrorless camera. Now, the release of that camera is not at the heart of today's message, rather the ensuing social media firestorm that came with it. Now, I could care less whether or not this discussion is about the Sony firestorm, but what I do care about is that we discuss the firestorms that come with every new major camera system that gets released. It doesn't seem to matter which manufacturer brings the product to market. There are always those that will have uneducated commentary about that release. You will see people that are shooters of other brands that will vehemently defend their brand and say that the new offering from another brand is a piece of crap, and you would have to be an ex-manufacturer fanboy to even consider it. I find those posts to be completely disingenuous and an absolute waste of my time. I am fortunate in that I get to shoot a lot of different major brands of cameras. It wasn't always that way. In fact, for many, many years, I was a Nikon shooter. Now, does that mean that I thought Nikon was the best brand out there? Depends on the day of the week. And did I salivate when someone new offered a new feature that my existing Nikon cameras didn't have? You bet I did. But I also spent a little bit of time thinking about the 20 or 30 lenses that I had invested in, and that's where the real investment was for me. I simply couldn't afford to step away from Nikon, whether there was a better offering or not, because I was so heavily invested in other expenses that went along with that selection. Now, over a period of time, I ended up teaching a ton of classes and offering a lot of destination photography workshops. And what I began to realize was I was seeing other brands around me, and that I felt that I needed to embrace those other brands so that I could offer my customers an educated view of those brands. When I first stepped from Nikon and added Canon into my fold of cameras, if you will, it was an interesting transition because there were a lot of features that I didn't know where they were, how to make them operate, or quite frankly, what they did. And it didn't take me really very long to come down to a startling realization. Those features didn't matter to me. What mattered to me was understanding the core principles of how to grab an image. The exposure mastery part of the equation was figuring out what did the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO need to be to capture my creative vision, irregardless of the brand that I was talking about. And how did I need to dial in exposure compensation to work around metering limitations that exist in every brand that I've run across. And as I've added additional manufacturers into my collection of camera bodies, that concept has held true all the way across the board. Now, over time, have I realized that certain bodies offer certain advantages and that certain bodies offer certain limitations? I certainly have. And I know now that when I go do a certain type of shoot, a night shoot, a long exposure shoot, a shoot where I'm hiking in the backcountry for a couple of days, or I'm going to be in a studio with controlled light, that I go and select a specific body for that mission. Now, does everybody have that luxury? Certainly not. And I don't mean to hold myself out as the way everybody should be. It's not practical. But before you bash a camera body, before you wholesale discount a brand, think about what you want to do with your photography efforts, and then look at the camera system that meets those goals most closely. I have seen users of unbelievably expensive camera systems turn out utter garbage. And I have seen other users of minimal camera systems turn out stunning art. Really, the most important feature of the camera is what sits 12 inches behind the viewfinder. We can thank Ansel Adams for that thought. So before you jump out there and start ranting about something you know nothing about, take a little time to educate yourself and be the person on social media that looks like the one who's smarter than a lot of the rest. That's enough for today. I'll step down off my soapbox now. Hopefully this video didn't put you off on looking at some of the other videos that we put out here on Softlight Studios. We do really try to be very vendor agnostic and just bring you approaches, techniques, and skills that will generate better, more compelling images for you. One last thought: learning equals skills, practice equals mastery. We'll see you out there.